Let's travel back to a time where the world is trapped in an ice age, and attempt to try survive 100 days in a climate filled with snow, and where most of the regular Minecraft life has died off due to extreme temperatures. With having to also worry about my temperature, my thirst, and my energy levels, this is set to be my hardest 100 days challenge yet. If you find yourself enjoying today's video and want to join me through the challenges that await us, then feel free to subscribe. It's free and 65% of you aren't even subscribed. So please sit back, get relaxed, and enjoy watching me attempt to survive 100 days in a frozen Minecraft world. Our story begins 100 days ago, at the start of an adventure in a world ravaged and taken over by a Minecraft ice age. This includes new Minecraft mobs and nightmares you could really only dream of. I started by doing what I do every Let's Play. I punched the nearest tree and set off an adventure in a world I didn't actually understand yet. I spent basically a large amount of day one exploring and discovering my new surroundings. And apart from it being absolutely freezing, I managed to find what looked like a goat. I wasn't sure, but after getting rid of the goats, I found a village nearby, and close to that I found a variety of abandoned campsites. Looking back, these look like they were owned by players who didn't survive this Arctic ice age. I actually really enjoyed sleeping in the abandoned campsite. I was slowly coming to the realization that the world around me had changed. The ice age around me had meant I had a lot more to focus on. For example, my thirst, my energy, tiredness, and keeping my core temperature up. I wanted to spend day 2 and 3 just getting iron, coal, and really just exploring my surroundings. I also made myself a canteen with the leather I got from the goats, something that would make my life easier in controlling my thirst. After smelting what I needed and gathering the resources that I wanted, I headed back to the Arctic frozen village to spend the night somewhere warm. It was a beautiful world. Frozen, but beautiful, and it was all mine. The sunrise was beautiful, and it gave me much needed warmth in a world that was 99% snow and cold. I'd explored a lot over the last few days. I wanted to find my forever home. Somewhere to make grounds and somewhere to live, and on day 4 I encountered my first problem with a variety of animals in this Arctic wasteland. I came across a bear. What are you? You look like a... Oh, it's a bear! Are you friendly? Are you berry friendly? It was surprisingly easy to take down. I realized after the first hit that it wasn't hostile, but I'm not exactly the friendliest person in the world. I came across another survivor on day 5, and after entering his campsite, I was actually attacked. I managed to take him down with 1.5 hearts left, which was very close to being the end of the series. The campsite looked strange. It looked like he was taking people captive. It looked like I wasn't alone after all. Day 6. I had finally found the area I wanted to make my own. I started the morning by using water to clear the snow surrounding my area, and oh my god was there a lot of it. Which in an ice age, I guess it's kind of understandable. I decided to use the spruce wood around me to make my forever home, and after clearing enough of the land, I started to lay out for what I wanted to make. It took a few days, but it all started to come together. I really didn't have a plan in mind for this build, but I used my previous 100 days experiences just to kind of merge everything into one. I also found out how to make lanterns, which may have taken a Google search or two, but from someone who's played 1.8 and 1.7 for most of his career, all these new things are fun to experiment with. And by the end of day 9, my home was finally ready. Now that I had my home, I needed the resources to be able to sustain it. I decided that instead of just like a little hole in the ground that went to a mine, I wanted to make an actual mine. Something I could easily go to for any resources that I needed over these 100 days. And the way I see it, it was something to keep me out of the cold weather above at the same time. This was definitely going to take a while, but I really like the challenges so far. I also wanted to make this as pretty as possible after I made a little bit of progress digging. These sub-zero temperatures though, they really weren't helping in getting the task done. Day 11 and my newest challenge was set right in front of me. It turns out that whilst I was worrying about dying from the cold, I also had to worry about dying from the heat. I decided on day 11 to start my 4-day mining trip, and I managed to find a few pools of lava and actually my first set of diamonds, but being close to the lava actually gave me hyperthermia, not hypothermia, and I was taking a lot of damage from the heat around me. I mean, the good news, I guess, is that I wasn't cold anymore. I spent up until the end of day 14 just doing the boring mining trip stuff, just collecting everything I wanted. I didn't know how much I was actually going to get out of it, but I was happy with the progress I was making. It was a world that was completely unfamiliar. I was cold, but evidently, I wasn't alone. I decided on day 15 that I'd actually spent enough time underground. Yeah, the world was cold, but it was still there for my taking. I wanted to explore the frozen world around me. After deciding to upgrade the stair system of my mine that I had originally made, I deposited the loot away very unorganized in a chest, which included 14 diamonds. And I spent the rest of the day decorating the mine in a way that the comments on this video would definitely be proud of. I mean, the positive was I wasn't dying of hypothermia anymore, but I was back in the freezing world and I was definitely excited. The sun was rising on day 16, so I did what I was looking forward to doing. I packed up my bed so I could sleep those cold nights away, and I actually went to explore. I really didn't have an end goal coming into this adventure. I just wanted to embrace the cold, embrace the world around me, and find whatever new task would come in front of me. I spent what felt like forever running, but eventually I came across something that felt similar. It was a broken nether portal next to a huge jungle covered in snow and ice. Something drew me to it. I don't know what it was, but it really felt like something I didn't want to experiment with. I wish I had listened to myself. I decided that the quickest way was to go through the jungle and not around it. I went through and everything seemed okay for a while until I was just about to exit. As I left, I noticed a player in front of me, a hunter. After a quick duel, he was down, but after turning around, I was being chased by another 2 hunters. And with myself already being poisoned and damaged from the fight before, I ran for my life. It definitely wasn't safe. It was a warning to stay away from the land they had claimed during this ice age, and I was very happy to oblige. Day 19, and I spent the morning cooking my raw food in what looked like just an abandoned campsite. After I had it all collected and it was all cooked to my liking, I went off on my adventure just to come across a pillager tower. Normal players with my amount of armor would run the other way, but in true JamieRaven fashion, I ran at them with full force. But by doing so, I'd actually given myself bad omen, something I really wasn't looking forward to having to deal with later on. I managed to climb and loot the chest at the top, but slowly I realized I was surrounded. With the world being how it was, there was different territories. People had claimed land and I hadn't respected it. I instantly decided to run for home, and after seeing how many pillagers were behind me, I locked myself to sleep the night away. And as the sun rose on day 20, I decided to head home. Not much happened on day 22. I had kind of just arrived home and spent the day planning the future days of this series, and also calming down from the near-death experiences I encountered over the last few days. This is definitely a note to self, respect territory. I was slowly realizing on day 23 that the world around me was going to cause issues, not only just with temperature, but with my food. I didn't know how many animals had survived this Arctic age, and I wasn't about to wait until my food source was gone to find out. So I came into day 23 and also 24 with the idea to make a bread farm. Being honest, I thought this was a genius idea. I thought I had outsmarted the Arctic, but after designing, mining, and what felt like 100 trees, I realized that even with torches, the water would just freeze over, meaning the crops wouldn't grow, meaning I would lose the seeds. For some reason, I just didn't fix it. I think I was just annoyed that I had spent the last 2 days on something thinking I'm outsmarting the world just for it to beat me down again. Another note to self, farms aren't worth it. We've actually had some pretty entertaining days so far, but this really wasn't one of them. I literally spent the entire of day 25 basically just mining obsidian. I wanted enough just to make a nether portal and to be able to get myself an enchant table with whatever was left over. I wanted to be prepared for anything the world had to throw at me, so after mining 17 obsidian and actually going up and making that enchant table, I enchanted my tools and armor with the lowest enchants I could. With the obsidian I'd collected on day 25, I wanted to make myself a nether portal, so eventually I could get blaze rods to get into the end. It would probably be warmer than the world I was in, but probably way more dangerous. I spent the start of my day marking out a room to put my portal in, and after a while, it was ready. It really wasn't pretty. I jumped through and went exploring for a variety of things, including a nether fortress, quartz for experience, and glowstone for a later project. However, still on day 26, I ended up leaving. After all the running and mining, my energy was depleted. I needed to get home and sleep, so it was back to the Arctic environment for me. After the nether, I really wanted to get better gear. I mean, I had armor, I had tools, but I had to use the lowest enchants possible because of the world around me. The snow and the ice and the environment had made sugarcane basically impossible for me to find. It really was just another problem that I had to deal with. So with the thought now in my head, I went out in search of sugarcane. After what was literally days of searching, I had an okay amount of sugarcane to start my farm. Looking back, the world was beautiful. And after collecting the sugarcane, I just took a second to take it all in. It was definitely a beautiful view. I arrived home on day 31, and just like that, I started what would eventually be my sugarcane farm. And it was gonna be perfect. And for what is like a second for you, was a very, very long time for me. On day 33, my eventual sugarcane farm was created. I really wanted to go for a homely feel for this build, and every build over these 100 days, because the world around me was so unfamiliar. I wanted this to be my safe space. And with the farm, I was able to slowly farm sugarcane, so eventually I would have the armor of the gods and all the bookshelves that I needed. I was slowly progressing and getting used to the world around me, and this definitely made me feel happy. With this newfound confidence, I wanted to get rid of this bad omen, just pardon the pun. I decided to take the best gear I had and head out to the nearest village, and that's where everything really went downhill. I arrived at the village on day 34, and I wasn't ready in the slightest. The pillagers who arrived demolished the village and everybody inside of it. I put up the best fight I could. I was getting very annoyed on day 35 at being unable to find the last raider. Even though I eventually did so, it ended on day 36. I had lost the village, I had lost the raid, I wasn't able to save them, and I let myself down. It was time to head home. Coming into day 37, I wasn't happy with not being able to save the villagers, so it was back to the grind for me. I spent the following days really just back in the mine, gathering the resources so I could become stronger in this frozen world. It took a very long time, especially with the hypothermia and the recurring mobs attacking me and just that going back and forth. After a few days though, I got what I needed to become stronger and I headed home with the loot. I left the mine in the night time of day 40. With the resources I had gathered, I wanted to get better armor really just as soon as possible and not wait around for another mishap like I had in the village the day before. After fighting my way through a few mobs, I made it inside and crafted my new armor, and I ended the night farming the sugarcane that had grown over the last few days. The process seemed to be becoming easier. I still wasn't where I wanted to be, but I guess that would come with the days. With my new diamond armor acquired over the previous few days of this series, and with the sugarcane farm really just thriving, I wanted to make a new enchanting room. Not only just to organize the mess that I had made, and yeah, the house looks beautiful, but the issue was that nothing was organized. It took a long time to collect the resources and make something that I was really proud of, but eventually my little hole in the ground was finished. I moved the anvils from upstairs into the downstairs, along with some chests and the bookshelves I had got with the leather that I had. The issue was that I was completely out of leather to make more bookshelves, which meant I couldn't enchant anything any higher. So I did what I do best. I packed up my bed, I closed my doors on day 43, and I went off on my adventure. I went further than I had ever gone before, and I took in every bit of scenery I could see and really just embraced the world of cold and ice around me. I was lucky enough over these 2 days to find not one, not two, but 3 villages. Full of villagers who had adapted and survived the harsh environments that were surrounding us. I decided to go through and pillage and plunder. I took what I could find from every chest, knowing that I would just survive that little bit longer. I felt bad, but I did this for every village I could find along the way. Use it or lose it, I guess. It felt nice to know that even in an environment that I couldn't really understand, I still didn't lose that part of myself. I had collected all the leather I could find from the mobs on the way there and from the village, and it was time to head home. I arrived back home at the nighttime of day 48, and the world around me really was beautiful. I had slept most of the nights away in this series purely out of fear, but my house was covered by the most beautiful northern lights, and I didn't want to start work at the nighttime of day 48. I really just wanted to rest. It had been a very long last few days, but it was completed, and I wasn't going to risk dying now, so I took myself off to bed and got ready for the next day ahead. And just like that, on day 49, my adventure in the previous few days had actually paid off. The leather I collected in my previous trip was enough to curate all of the bookshelves that I needed to complete my enchanting room. And it actually didn't look too bad. I was quite proud of myself. But however, all of the positives that I had over the last few days, I felt alone in this world. Because of the environment around me, I had no animals, I had no companions. I really wanted that to change. So once again, I packed up my things for yet another trip. I went to find myself a noble steed, someone to enjoy this journey with. Day 50, and it didn't take long. I found not exactly what I was looking for. I mean, I was expecting to find like a horse, maybe a donkey, maybe something else, but I really wasn't expecting to find myself a reindeer. I guess in a situation like this, the animal chooses you, not the other way around. I took one look at him and decided to call him Jumpy, which is ironic because he was slow and couldn't jump. But in this situation, just like me, he was alone in this environment. In this cold, in this snow, we were both lonely. So I took him back and decided that we would be companions for life, or until he died next episode, one of the two. With my new best friend taken under my wing in the form of Jumpy the reindeer, I realized that he really did deserve the best. He had survived this harsh winter environment for however long all on his own, with no one to guide him or no one to help him or just no one to look after him. I wanted to spend day 51 and 52 making him the reindeer pen of his dreams, and that's exactly what I got to work doing. It took a while to really get the idea flowing from pen to paper. I'd never really made a pen this large before, let alone for a reindeer, and it took what felt like a long time. I ended day 52 filling it out with some water and also some food for Jumpy the reindeer. I also have no idea if reindeers eat wheat. I really should have googled beforehand. I'm a bad owner. I realized on day 53 that having full diamond armor was probably really going to help me in the long run of this series, and I completely overlooked an important tool I could make to help me with this process: a hammer. I decided after looking through the hammers I could make that I should use the emeralds that I had to make myself an emerald hammer, something that could help collecting resources at a moment's notice. And with my new emerald hammer in hand and looking extremely fancy if I say so myself, I set back off into that reliable mine of mine to get what would soon be full diamond armor. And over the next days, I did just that. The hammer allowed me to mine a 9x1 area, and it made hard work extremely easy. I decided to head up on day 56 with more loot than I knew what to do with. I headed home, I dropped off my earnings, I fixed my hammer with my leftover emeralds, and decided to enchant it to the best that I could so I could get the most out of something I'm actually quite ashamed I forgot about earlier. With my new diamond armor completed and my new tools repaired and ready at my disposal, I decided to spend day 57 and also 58 in the warm environment of the Nether, where hypothermia would really be an issue. However, I was much more prepared than before, which filled me with confidence. My main goal here was to find myself a Nether fortress and collect the blaze rods that I would hopefully be able to use to fill in the end portal and destroy that dragon. It was a much different environment than the Ice Age I was used to and what I had left behind, but it had a familiar feeling of safety. I couldn't really quite explain it, but it felt like a second home. Day 59, and I never realized how difficult it would be to survive in the Nether, even for just a few simple days. I got really lucky and I managed to find a Nether fortress actually pretty quick onto this adventure, and after a while of running for my life from everything that was there, I managed to find the blaze spawner that I craved so badly. I spent a while set around it just waiting for blazes to spawn, and after what seemed like forever, I decided to head home with what I had collected. The Nether was dangerous. I mean, I thought the cold was bad, but this seemed more difficult. With the mobs that could kill me as well as the heat that I had, I just hoped it was enough for when I eventually found that stronghold. After running through everything that the Nether had to offer me, and after dodging pretty much every dangerous mob or block in the entire dimension, I finally decided it was time to head home from the fire-filled place and back through the portal. I returned to the cold night of day 61. It was beautiful to see those northern lights again. I mean, I had a tough few days ahead of me, trying to get the necessary equipment so I could take on the tough tasks. The world was becoming more familiar, no matter how difficult it is, and with that, it was off to sleep before another tough day. I realized on day 62 I had forgotten a key part of not only finding but completing the end portal, that being the ender pearl. Even with the armor that I had acquired over the last few days, I still didn't feel comfortable at night. I could barely handle the weather during the day, and night really wasn't going to be any easier. I decided to do the only thing that I knew. I went back into the mine to collect some gold, to head to the Nether to trade with piglins, and hopefully get the amount of pearls that I thought I needed. And after getting and smelting what I thought was enough gold, I decided to head back into the Nether to trade with piglins, where I ended day 63 getting 4 ender pearls from the gold I had collected, giving me 5 in total. I decided after to go back after heading home to collect more gold, as I had the feeling that 5 really wouldn't be enough. I got very lucky the second time round, putting 2 piglins in a hole and managing to collect 4 ender pearls out of it. This to me was enough. I was definitely ready. Day 66, and it was adventure time again. I really wanted to spend the day finding the stronghold that would lead me to the end. I knew I wasn't ready to fight the dragon just yet, but just opening that portal would definitely give me motivation. So I took Jumpy out of his beautiful reindeer pen and followed the Eye of Enders that I had created through the harsh wind. It really took less time than I had already anticipated to find the stronghold. After about 2 days of adventuring through the terrain, I threw my Eye of Ender and it landed right in front of me. I knew I had found it. I put Jumpy away somewhere where I wouldn't lose him, and down I dug. And before I knew it, I was in the stronghold. I had one task now: to find the portal. After a minute or two of searching and looting basically whatever I could, I managed to find the end portal. But that also came with bad news. I was 4 Eye of Enders too short to complete the task that I wanted to so badly. It was time to head home in defeat for today. It meant I had to return to Nether, and what would hopefully be for the last time. I really feel like I've said this 100 times, but it was definitely time to jump back into the Nether. This time, however, will be so much quicker than the previous. After jumping straight into the portal when I got home on day 70, I knew exactly where to go to to get to the fortress. But on the journey, I realized I was an idiot. I managed to find a fortress which was much closer to my original portal in and out of the Nether, and I'm really surprised I didn't see it earlier. All I needed was the blaze rods in this situation. I got very lucky with the Enderman on the return trip home from the stronghold and got the 4 that I needed. And after collecting the blaze rods from the Nether, I quickly made the Eye of Enders and returned home for a well-deserved break. It took a very long time to get what I needed, but I felt like the adventure was worth it. The experience and the growth that I had experienced definitely would pay off in the end. I returned home to my icy abode tired and drained from the days before. I realized that if I wanted to actually be able to beat the Ender Dragon, I actually needed a stable food source. The farm was nice, but it wasn't consistent due to the snow and the ice just freezing over. It would just freeze over the water that it needed to sustain the plant life. So I did what I do best. I worked on a fishing dock. There were plenty of new mobs to explore, and water life was also included in that. It took a while and it really wasn't the prettiest, but after mining down another 100 trees, it kind of worked for what I wanted. Day 75, and with the dock finally completed, it was time to get prepared. I had spent the whole of the day inside, away from the Arctic Blitz outside, and had spent the day enchanting books, which would then coincide with enchanting my armor and then my tools, just to make them the best they could be for the task ahead. It was going to be a long next few days. I wanted to be ready for the toughest task yet, the Ender Dragon. And that meant spending the day just getting my armor and my tools the best they could possibly be. It was time to at least give it a go. I mean, on day 76, if I died here, the video would literally end. Everything that the frozen world around me had thrown at me these last 76 days was now in the past. I decided it was time. I left the comfort of my own home on day 76 and traveled far through the world to the end portal. I had Jumpy as my noble steed by my side, and I was ready for whatever was thrown at me during these next few days. Before I knew it, after 2 days, I had arrived. And after dropping Jumpy off in a hole nearby so he was safe in the world while I was gone, I dug down to find the eventual portal. It was right in front of me. The eyes were in, and with my nerves at an all-time high, I jumped in to fight the dragon. It was extremely difficult. I was underwhelmingly undergeared, and I managed to do what I could. Every task in front of me was starting to become impossible. It was a really tough fight. Multiple times throughout this, I thought it was a situation that was going to be my last. My food was going low, my armor was at breaking point, and I was too. It was the most intense situation I think I've been in during an 100-day series. It took an extremely long time, but I finally completed it. The Ender Dragon in front of me was removed, and with a deep breath, I collected my first trophy, the Dragon Egg, and decided to head home with my newfound victory. After collecting Jumpy from the hole that I had left him in, it was time to head home on day 81. There really isn't much left to say. I mean, the previous days had definitely taken their toll on me, and at this point, all I wanted was to get home and get Jumpy safe and to relax. I really felt like I'd earned it after a task that was so difficult. I returned home on day 83 after a long trip through the cold winds, the heavy snow, and the harsh environments around me. It was a blizzard when I returned home after my trip, and with my productivity feeling an all-time high after the achievement I had just got, I wanted to get started on my newest project. But the world around me said no, it was definitely time to wait. There were too many frozen mobs and just regular mobs to even make a dent in the task that I wanted to complete. So I headed inside to sleep the night away. Everything was definitely finally coming together, and it was beautiful to see the progress. I came into the next day after a fresh night's sleep, realizing just a few things. Things that logically I should have realized maybe about 30 to 40 days ago. With all the work I was doing mining trees, it would probably be a good idea to use the experience I got from the dragon to make myself a god axe. So that's exactly what I did. After a little bit more work enchanting and creating tools and also combining, I managed to create myself an efficiency 5 unbreaking 3 axe that was going to tear through the trees for my next project, a potato farm. I also realized that if I put a heat source, in this case torches, above the frozen water, it would stay as water. I feel like this should have been a very obvious observation to make, maybe 30 to 40 days ago, but I was so focused on surviving the harsh conditions that I really just didn't think. It took the entire of day 84 and 85 to design, make, mine, etc, but I'd finally created my second farm. I woke up on day 86 after a few hard days of Minecraft manual labor work, really wanting to head back into the end. There were definitely a few things that I was missing, and a few things that I definitely wanted as we came up to the last 14 days of this series. I felt like I had adapted to the world around me, and I was really enjoying the frozen world and every challenge that it gave me. It was a change of pace and I loved it. I decided to collect Jumpy from his little home, and again we ventured back off to the end. This time to hopefully collect the 2 trophies that I wanted, the elytra and also the dragon head. I didn't know how long it was going to take, especially to find what I wanted, but I knew I had set my sights on a new goal and I wouldn't give up until I did it. It took just over a day of traveling, but I had finally arrived at the portal. And leaving the cold behind, I finally jumped into a portal to eventually find the end city that I desired so badly. It took a very long time, but I finally found what I was looking for, and the city itself was beautiful. I wanted to take every last piece of loot from the mountain of a building in front of me, but the shulker boxes were causing massive issues, as death was the only thing in this situation that I didn't want. Specifically this late into a journey, I really didn't want to die. After looting and pillaging what I could, I finally reached my way towards new heights, literally. I finally managed to get my elytra after a very long task, but I might have lost the dragon head. I was disappointed, but I'd really just had to accept it. It was gone and there was nothing I could do. I ended the day flying around. I had what I needed, the series was coming to an end, and it was time to go home. It was time to say goodbye. These 100 days had been an adventure and really just a test of my own ability to survive any situation given to me. I had overcome great threats, I had adapted, and I had survived in a world that didn't seem survivable. I was ready to head home, to place down my trophies and to end this series and begin a new age of warmth and survival. I put my sign by the portal for any future players and prepared for the next leap in my life. It was time to jump through, and that's what I did. But I wasn't home. My items were gone. It was a trap.